Pete Nigerian and I about to fill you in on why Intel is doing this while Dave and Buster's is doing this. We've got all of that right after this. Bang!
Oh, he's got it. You know, it's one of the few times that I actually get to be wherever you are, which is always somewhere fun, John. So, I missed out yesterday. It's a travel day for me, but you and Mark, I think I heard it was pretty good.
It was. And luckily you got here safe and sound. Yep. And we're here at the 10X conference, folks. This is Grant Cardone's big 10X Growth Con. So we were out there partying it up with Buster Rhymes last night. And, there's a shot.
There's a shot. There's our CEO.
Buster was on mark last night, Pete. He was great. And people were rocking. It didn't hurt that it was an open bar the whole time. So everybody was like, ah! But,
I don't think, John, I felt like we were in Las Vegas, and I felt like it was, a whole rap convention, and probably the average age in the room is not your normal rap convention, but nonetheless, they were into it, man. I mean, X gonna give it to you. That was phenomenal. I'll tell you, Buster Rhymes was phenomenal, and the guy who was the Sir Scratch-A-Lot before Sir Scratch-A-Lot came out did a heck of a job as well. I mean, he was playing a little bit of everything. It was great.
Yeah, it was one thing Grant really knows, folks, is how to entertain. So any of these events with Grant Cardone and his team, very entertaining. Tonight, Pete, it's Wycliffe Jean that's going to be entertaining the crowd. If those of you who remember the Fugees, very interesting guy. And wow, today we saw Mike Tyson, but we'll get to all that.
Yeah.
First, we're going to dive into the macro minute. So, Pete, macro for today, I'm going to say, well, geopolitical tensions, along with some of these lifts that we're seeing in inflation again, in particular in crude oil. That's why I'm saying we're seeing the markets sort of trading with a lot of trepidation. That's the word of the day, trepidation. What do you think?
It is that is the perfect description of the macro minute. This is trepidation. These guys are having a hard time. We know how difficult Monday, Tuesday were, and then all of a sudden we get to today, John. We get the ADP, so we get a little bit more solid payroll growth. That was pretty good, easing, but still sticky inflation, and that is still a problem. You look at the 10-year, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's what's kind of pulling the markets. Every time they try to go up, it's struggling right now, and they pull them right back down.
Yep, it's one of those things you just have to deal with, I guess, Pete. But you know what time it is now, folks. Time for Fantastic Futures! And Fantastic Futures aren't so fantastic for those of us who drive internal combustion engine vehicles, which is most of us. And that's because crude oil inventory's down. So in other words, if the amount of crude oil is drawn down, that is not good in terms of the prices, because prices are going up. And they missed by 2.3 million barrels, Pete. That was a lot. And that's why I think we're seeing the market also on its heels rather than on its toes.
Oh, absolutely, John. I mean, we talk about inflation all the time. We talk about food and we talk about energy. We talk about all this different stuff. But crude oil, year to date, up over 20% or right around that 20%. The stock, the barrel was at $86, actually just a little bit above that as well. So 5 to 6 months highs. We'll see if that continues to the upside. Based upon the backdrop right now, John, I would say that oil does have a very good opportunity to get up towards 90. That's going to affect us with the gas pump as well. That's going to be pretty ugly for a lot of us as we are trying to go in our combustion vehicles that you were just talking about.
That's right. And it means the airlines, which is their biggest cost, folks, even though they just gave raises to many of the positions at airlines. Still more than the salaries that they pay. It's crude oil and the distillate, as they say, Pete, the refined version of it into Jet A. That's going to start taking a bite, and they're going to make less money, or they're going to have to pass it on to us. Again, it's just one more bit of inflation. All right, small cap spotlight. Folks, Mark Lopresti and I are really proud to be part of this team, BioLargo, Pete. This is a small cap stock. We are on the BioLargo team, and by that I mean that we do have exposure to the stock. We are paid to help create buzz about the stock. This is not a pump and dump. We do not sell stock in this one, but we have purchased shares. And what is the reason that we're talking about BioLargo today? Other than that, well, their 2023 report just came out late yesterday, Pete. And the distributors, they have this one product, because BioLargo has many products. One of them is something called Poof. And Poof, Pete, is an odor eliminator primarily for pets. So in other words, if there's a mess on the floor and you clean it up and you hit it with this Poof, you don't smell it anymore, because it breaks, the enzymes in it break down what would otherwise be a stinky situation. So that's one of their big products, Pete. And this is going to be $1 billion product. They achieved 108% year over year revenue growth. Revenues were up 64% quarter over quarter. So you're getting an idea of why we're talking about this one. It's not just because we are part of their team that brings you the information to help get people focused on the stock, but also because they're blowing out the numbers, Pete. Shareholder equity more than doubled, and PFAS remediation. PFAS is a forever chemical that's in water supplies around the country. Unfortunately, well, they have a remediation product that can deal with that. And that's another reason to at least focus in on this stock. Again, Pete and I never tell you to buy or sell something, but we do tell you the reasons behind why we are buying or selling something. And that's the case with this one, Pete. A very interesting story with BioLargo. It is a small cap stock, but by all means, check that one out. All right, Pete, let's talk about Dave & Buster's Play. They fell short of consensus estimates in Q4. However, shares are screaming to the upside right now. And why are they doing that? Well, their guidance going forward is really strong. And when you look at that from Rebel Research, that chart there, you're seeing that big jump out of PLAY, the symbol for Dave & Buster's. And we had unusual activity in it. We had it back in January, and that activity was for a year into the future, Pete. It was for January of 2026, which at that time had been, I guess, 2 years into the future. Well, now it's still over a year into the future, and they were buying calls in here. The stock was under 50. Now it's 68.43. There you see it, up another almost 11% today. So I don't think it's going to be too long, Pete, before this thing might actually see that $80 level that we talked about there. But a blowout earnings out of these guys, Pete. Fantastic results for PLAY.
Yep, numbers are great, and as you talked about, the outlook is very, very strong. And then you start looking at some of the fundamental part of this thing. Those shorts that are short, and they are huge numbers in the short side of things, John, they aren't liking this at all today. This is a terrible feeling for the shorts because they are getting squeezed. It was already a stock that was up 20% year to date. Now you're tacking this on. I think the interesting thing too, John, is oftentimes we look at these earnings and we just go off of exactly the numbers themselves. But I would challenge people to take a look at this. They did miss on earnings, right? But a year ago at this quarter, they had 80 cents. This year, it was $1.03. So if you take a look at that and you look at different things that maybe they had missed on, if you want to, harp on that, just know that year over year, this thing is starting to get a little bit better. And clearly the shorts are in trouble. But this is a really interesting stock. And it seems like they have a little bit more room, maybe a lot more room still to the upside.
Yeah. PLAY, folks, still like it. And like I say, we had unusual activity in it. If you want to follow us in any of that, go to marketrebellion.com/get started. It's on the bottom of your screen right now. marketrebellion.com/get started. And you could subscribe and follow those trades just like Pete and I do. All right. ELF, ELF, Pete. Cosmetic companies have been slumping. And why is that? That's because Ulta Beauty, ULTA, warned of a beauty slowdown in sales, which is not good. So these guys, Pete, moving to the downside today, and they just did a TikTok shop brand day. That ends today, Pete. And apparently, maybe they need more TikTok shop days, because the fact that it's ending, some people are saying, okay, I'm out.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting one, John. The CEO just came out and flat just said, hey, look, there's a slowdown in demand. We are seeing that as we go forward and across multiple categories. So when you look at that, you look at the fact that this is a company that fundamentally, they still look very strong. They have a huge short interest here as well. This time they're actually making money off this short interest, maybe at least, but about 5 or 6% of the shares are short. I think the interesting thing is, was it a little too stretched? If you take a look at this company and you take a look at where their PE is now, and that's after it's down another 10% today, you're still looking at a 53 PE, John. So is it kind of expensive? Feels kind of expensive to me. We're not talking about a startup tech company or something like that. We're talking about, as you said, makeup and beauty products. Well, I think that's a little bit steep, and I think that's one of the reasons why this could correct even further, especially given the fact that if demand is starting to slow, that's going to be a major problem for not just ELF, but multiple others in that category. I think that's why we're seeing so many falling to the downside today as well.
Exactly. Well, Pete, we have a second stock that had unusual activity. This stock was Intel. Intel, Pete, came out with basically some information that they're facing $7 billion in losses for their foundry business, and they might not break even with that business till 2027. Ouch. Well, there's a chart again from Rebel Research. You guys can subscribe to that. It's technical, fundamental, and sentiment index that we follow. And it's live time in 35,000 stocks. Just go to marketrebellion.com/research and you can see it. But what I'm pointing out here, Pete, is that somebody may have had an inkling that something might be happening here, because they were buying puts in Intel. Now, unfortunately for them, those puts expired last Thursday. So how'd you like to have called this one right, Pete, but then not had enough time on the clock? That's one of the problems, folks. Pete and I like to be very honest and transparent with you guys about when you're trading options, you've got to pick the strike price. In other words, where do you think it's going to go, upside or downside, calls or puts, and the time frame. And if you mess up on either of those, well, you might be like this guy, right church, wrong pew, as they like to say. But Pete, what do you think of Intel here? And would you buy on a dip like this?
I wouldn't buy just yet, John, and here's why. They had such a terrible outlook, and that was coming straight from the CEO when he said 2024, we're going to start to peak in our losses. Now, at some point, I think they're going to get a nice bounce back, but not just yet. I'm looking at the stock, John, and I'm looking at a range. This was a $28 stock a year ago, got all the way up to 50. Here we are now trading somewhere close to 40, 41 bucks a share. So it's not that far off of that level, but nonetheless, I think this is one where you can be a little bit patient. We've had a great move in the stock that actually propelled us up here. But when you lose the kind of money they did in the foundry, John, we're talking about nearly 10 billion year over year. They went from 27.5 billion to 18.9 billion. I mean, that's a bit of a problem. You talked about the losses. How about the fact that their cash burn is very close to $12 billion? So even though it's a very inexpensive, PE on this one, that's something I think you at least have to know. You have to have that in your back pocket to have the knowledge for that. I think this thing gets into the mid-30s, and then it's probably an opportunity. But it depends on the timing and what the rest of, is going on with NVIDIA and AMD. Obviously, all the rest of the chip-type names out there. Intel's its unique self, and it's going to be interesting. But the CEO was blunt, and I think sometimes you have to be. But unfortunately, that doesn't mean that's gonna fare well when it comes to the stock price that day.
Yeah, very well said, Pete. I would wait on this one as well. All right. Signet Jewelers. Let's talk about this one, Pete, because Signet shares are jumping. And this one did give you an opportunity, Pete, because they came out with their numbers, and the company and Leonard Green amended terms of a Series A convertible for their shares. What is a convertible? That's, of course, when somebody has the option at their discretion to convert a bond or some interest-bearing product, usually, into shares of stock. So in this case, the stock is jumping. It opened at 100, Pete. It ran to 107, but it's still holding nearly 105 right now. So a big day for SIG common shares, and that's pretty big for anybody watching jewelry, not the makeup side, but the jewelry side doing much better today.
Yeah, they certainly are. And the financial strength that they've got, John, and they are obviously betting on themselves. They've got great free cash flow, about $253 million there. They raised the earnings on the outlook. That looks pretty impressive. They've got a huge short interest, which can be a good squeeze category, which I think is partially what we were seeing today. But I think for all those reasons, John, it didn't quite hit a new 52-week high, but it was only about a buck away or so. Yeah, it was really close. So it'll be interesting to see how this transpires going forward, but these numbers look great, and it looks like folks in the jewelry world are faring far better right now than those in the makeup world. And I can tell you firsthand, over Easter, I grabbed some stuff at the makeup spot for my wife. I can't believe the prices. I don't know how the hell people do it. The demand's got to slump a little bit, John, just because the prices are outrageous right now, in my opinion. That's inflation. I mean, and they might even be in the category of gouging when it comes to some of those folks, unfortunately, that we're seeing out there.
Yeah, but I'm right with you. And even though it's after, of course, a lot of the holidays, Pete, both Christmas and Valentine's Day, when people are buying a lot of jewelry, potentially, I still like this one going into wedding season. So keep that in mind, folks. June is not too far off. All right. We mentioned that there's a lot of celebrities here at the 10X Growth Con. That's Grant Cardone's 10X Growth Con. You guys wouldn't believe all the celebrities that are here. Yesterday, it was Tucker Carlson. It was Tyler Perry. Who is the guy, Pete, with Sleeping with the Seal? Who is that guy again?
Yeah, Jesse Itzler.
Jesse Itzler. Thank you. And today, it was the one and only Mike Tyson. So take a look at this video. Here's Pete entering the arena today, and there's the stage.
This is a rock star.
4,800 people in person and 40,000 online. And there's Mike Tyson. And there's Grant cheerleading. I tell you what.
It really is amazing.
Great interview, right, Pete?
Oh, unbelievable. And we'll jump on that first thing, John, because you want to talk about the baddest man in the world. That was his nickname. He lived up to the nickname. And I'll tell you, Mike Tyson is an amazing guy. He's a fun public speaker. Is he always, perfect when he's speaking? No, but he's a boxer. And the guy's got this great heart. He's got great faith. He's got all these wonderful things on his side. And John, come June 20th, I'll tell you one thing. I don't want to be Jake Paul. I don't want to be any Paul. I want to make sure I'm out of the way of this guy. He's ready. At the very end, how great was it, John? So this is about a 45-minute interview with Mike Tyson. And Grant Cardone did a great job. He asked him all kinds of interesting questions and everything. But at the very end, who stripped off their shirt? Mike Tyson. The guy's going to be 58 years old in like just a couple of months. He'll be ready for this one. He looks ready already. The baddest man in the world, I think, is living up to who that nickname really fits. It is Mike Tyson. Don't you think, John?
Yeah. And he's still this wide, Pete. He's wide across the shoulders. Not as tall, but he's 58 years old almost. But his hands are fast. His endurance seems to be much better than virtually any other 58-year-old that I can imagine, Pete. And the one question that I really loved that Grant asked him was, Mike, I hear in order to throw a punch, you have to be able to take a punch. Is that true? And Mike said, no, Grant, that's not how it goes. You see, you want to hit people and you want to not let them hit you. That's what boxing's all about.
It was, first of all, it's a great imitation. Secondly, I will say this: it was awesome to hear him say that, because of course not. Yeah, you don't train to take a hit.
No, nobody's like taking shots in the face.
But it's a fun. It is, to Grant's question. It's a fun question to ask, right? Because people all want to know, how do you? It's not that you train to do it, but how do you take a monstrous hit to the jaw and come back again? And that's really what he's asking. He's just saying, hey, look, when they hit you, what do you do? What's next, or whatever? And Mike,
well, Pete, and that's his famous quote.
Yep.
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Right.
And then all of a sudden everything changes. You take that shot in the face and it's like, you stiffen up. In some cases you go down if it's Mike Tyson throwing that punch.
Yeah.
But Pete, you and I both know, and you played a lot longer, in football, if you really take a shot, maybe it's you delivering the hit, but you still feel it even though you delivered the hit. The other guy might feel it more, but you also, if it's like, a running back hitting the hole right as you're coming into that hole, boom, both of you, it wakes both of you up. And I think Jake Paul is going to need some smelling salts. Sorry about that, Jake. But that's the way I view it. I think he's ready.
Yeah, we're just calling it like we see it. And I'm seeing a guy who is probably arguably one of, if not the greatest fighter ever in boxing. And here he is going up against a guy who's had a couple of matches, did a little UFC. I mean, let's be honest. That's a challenge that Jake Paul has signed up for. And I don't know, Mike's. I'll tell you what, John. He had the gut already all chiseled. I mean, he's ready today. Unreal.
He's ready.
All right. Next up, we've got Houston. We do not have a problem with the Texans, and I'll say it this way.
I like that.
John, these guys went to the playoffs last year, and how did they do that? Well, they did it by being very smart in who they drafted, because even though they had the picks they had, they could have chosen differently. Instead, they get a quarterback who's, he's only the rookie of the year for the offensive side. You got an outside linebacker in Anderson out of Alabama. Well, he's the defensive player of the year for the rookies. I mean, that's killing it. And by the way, in the offseason, they've lost a lot of guys. They've also added some guys to their roster. Anderson, who's an unbelievable outside linebacker, who's going to be on the one side of the Texans. Well, now you've got Danielle Hunter from the Minnesota Vikings, who last year, when they gave him all of these different things in his salary, John, one of them was bonuses after a certain number of sacks. Well, he ended up adding like $4 or $5 million to his bonuses because of how many sacks that he got. Now he's going to be the opposite side. Who do you block? When you've got two outstanding guys coming at you, who do you block? So they also picked up a linebacker and a defensive tackle, both absolutely beast players from from what used to be the Houston Oilers. Now, obviously, for the people who don't know, it's the Tennessee Titans. They just signed those two guys as well. And yesterday, they decided to go out and grab a receiver just to add to Stroud so you could have just a little bit more. D'Amico Ryans, the coach, is doing an amazing job of working with the GM and all of the scouts on what he wants. So now they've got Stephon Diggs. Oh, they got Joe Mixon, the running back who used to be up at Cincinnati. This is a team built to go to Super Bowls, not just a Super Bowl. And, John, they're young, they're hungry, they've got a coach who wants to prove it wasn't a fluke last year. I can't say enough about how good I think the Houston Texans are positioning themselves for the year. It doesn't mean it'll all work, but they sure are looking like they're getting all the right pieces to the puzzle to make a step past Baltimore and the rest of the AFC maybe next year.
Yeah, Pete. And CJ Stroud, man, what a great story.
Yeah.
And the kid is just a beast. And, obviously a great history coming into the draft last year. And then with a full season under his belt, Pete, this guy is a winner. And as you say, getting another running back from Cincinnati and a wide receiver to augment what they already had, I think that's a pretty tough team. Nobody is going to want to see the Texans on that schedule, but a lot of teams are going to have to play them, and I think they go through a lot of teams, Pete.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be awesome. The NFL's absolutely in a great spot right now because next up is the draft. We've gone through just about everything, the pro days, the this, the that, the combines, everything. John, the draft, you know what? There'll be more people watching that draft than watch most sports championship games. So that shows you what a dominating thing the NFL really is.
Yep. Well, as you can tell from behind Pete, folks, it's a sunny day here in Florida, South Florida. We're in Aventura. The event is happening at the Diplomat Hotel. Like I say, something around 4,800 people in the audience, absolutely jam-packed. Pete and I will be back over there today. And then tomorrow, we will be on stage with Grant Cardone making a big announcement. So we're really looking forward to that. And we hope all of you, if you'd like to learn more about trading options, if you'd like to subscribe to any of our products, you go to marketrebellion.com/get started. It's on the bottom of your screen through the whole show. marketrebellion.com/get started. We're back tomorrow at 1.